Hello, welcome. We're happy you're here.
Hi, thanks so much for coming. We wish we could see you. As you travel around old Francia, think of the tales the hills could tell you. Share the awe of natural wonder. Tread the trails, but as you wander, honor the ancient traditions to be literate, informed, democratic, and free. More and more we see that the ancient Celtic stewardship has preserved Europe's natural wonders. You enter someone's domain to share the natural beauty of it with them and to savor the bounty of the land. And together you listen to what the hills are telling you.
We want to talk with you today about how you go about finding that Celtic layer. There are two main L factors to consider: location and language. For location, gravitate to the prime spots, places that would make life wonderful at any time, where fresh water is plentiful and full of fish, and a place where it's easy to survive and defend. So inland lakes, loops, or islands in the river, and thermal baths pretty much top that list. Now for language, the most important thing to remember is that the Celts like to describe things literally, to make it easy to navigate by identifying landmarks. One of the favorites, berg, hilltop, ribnica, full of fish. Now, you may have noticed that I went from berg, which is still used in German today, to ribnica, fish in Slovenian. Am I confusing languages? Start from the premise that Europe was divided and conquered again and again, one empire after another. One of the means of division and control of a population was likely to make up new languages and impose them on people. Now let's go back to the notion of descriptive naming. No matter what the language, Celts seem to want to help people navigate by giving them landmarks that won't change too much. Because you're still a Celt, and that's the way you've always named things before. Because of this, the nature of the word assumes greater importance for us than the language it's in.
That explains why all over Europe you have lake views and riversides, and why Bad is used for hot springs in Germany and Bain in France. It links all the words relating to salt. Salts, sel, sal, so, to name a few, because salt was hugely important to Celts for everything from preserving food to disinfecting wounds. Salzburg, Celle, Celia, Salena, Bain, these names carry with them a past where salt was immensely important to the region, whether for food preservation, disinfectant, health cure, or seasonings. Wine, that is showing more and more to have been a staple of Celtic culture, also links in language. Vin, vino, wine, vine became necessary for survival when the water was bad. Other words relate to the public places that were essential parts of Celtic settlements. Hall identifies the fest halls that were converted to churches as part of the Christian conquest. Markt, marché, mercado for public marketplace. Burg, chateau, grad, castrum, castle. Kloster, Stift, Abtei, or Abbaye, used for abbeys. When you see one, look for the others. That is, when you see hall, look for the marketplace right next to it, a refuge castle, or abbey in a loop in the river.
Okay, so that's a bit of background into location and language. Let's take a specific example. Hallstatt. So right away you see the significance of the place because of hall in the name. And it won't surprise you that archaeological digs have unearthed literally thousands upon thousands of pre-Christian Celtic artifacts here. What may be less expected is that the digs were undertaken by a woman before World War I, that this woman identified with Germany and Slovenia, that she had an archaeologist from France to assist her, that Harvard's Peabody Museum holds thousands of the artifacts that she uncovered. The Duchess of Mecklenburg ties Slovenia with northeastern Germany and Austria. She links to beautiful refuge castles in both places, both now open to the public, and in fact the one in Mecklenburg, Germany, now holds government offices. Hallstatt. So the name has hall in it. What about the location? It's on a lake in the mountains, and there's a major salt mine there. This is also the place that gives its name to the first part of the Iron Age, some 850 years before the start of the Common Era.
And why does Hallstatt give its name to the Hallstatt Iron Age? Archaeologists see this as an early place that developed iron smelting. It also emblematizes the angular style of this era. So between the salt mines that were worked by Celts in the 1,000 years before the current era and the hall in the name, Hallstatt is going to be full of Celtic signs. What are we looking for? Despite the zillions of tourists, the Alpine Lake somehow preserves its pristine beauty. That means someone here is preserving it against all odds, against big mining operations that obliterate the mountains, or the millions of condominiums that would want to occupy every single crag with a lake view. So where's the fest hall? Probably it's the one occupied by the evangelical church now. What about a refuge castle? Right across the water, well positioned for defensive purposes.
Is there an abbey here? What is an abbey? We've seen convincing evidence that abbeys were originally centers of learning and production, and in pre-Christian times were often founded by women. So what are the component parts of an abbey? There's always a gathering hall, and here in Hallstatt it seems to include a heroes' hall. From what we've seen, Celts typically honored men and women for defense, invention, and leadership. Remember that when Christianity conquered Europe, it took what was already there and adapted it to the Christian story. So we have here the church named after Mary's trip to heaven. But Christianity does not recognize Mary as a god, so it's not a good fit for Christians to have both the name and imagery of such an important hall dominated by a non-god woman. Who does this hero's hall likely honor? Which trials and executions took place at nearby Salzburg? So here's the dichotomy. The church state notoriously burned women at the stake as witches, and the Celts venerated their fallen heroes. It's likely that Maria represents Celtic women who have been killed. By its name, we can see that Salzburg also links directly with Hallstatt and to its ancient salt production and trade.
Salt and iron, these both brought great wealth to the Celtic culture, and both are prominent here in Hallstatt. Because of that, it would be highly unlikely that Hallstatt would not have its own abbey. As a center for mining both salt and iron, where miners, engineers, and their apprentices could gather to practice and perfect their métier. What other attributes do abbeys usually have? Orchards and vineyards. Here on the steep hill, it's hard to have a horizontal abbey campus, but we can see what might be remnants of a vertical one. There's a cemetery, and we know that early on, orchards shared space with cemeteries. As to vineyards, I can remember staying at a historic inn here in Hallstatt where a very old vine was actually growing through the porch window and wrapping around the entire ceiling of the interior. You grow vines wherever you can.
So we have the fest hall, the abbey, the castle, the marketplace. Yes, there's one across from the abbey, and the street is still named Marketplace. We suppose that the buildings just across from what is now the evangelical church have been built in the former market square that likely used to accommodate traveling fairs and markets. For such an important place as Hallstatt, the original market would have been much larger, the heart of the village. Here comes the partridge in the pear tree. Where are the thermals? We have the fest hall, the abbey, the castle, the marketplace, but where are the thermals?
Well, as it turns out, you have your choice. Bad Aussee, Bad Geusern, Bad Ischl, Bad Mitterndorf, Bad Wiegauen. These 5 hot springs resort towns ring Hallstatt. Even now, the thermals are wonderful places that usually still have a main public facility with hot spring-fed pools and massage jets. Often the lodgings close to that source offer indoor thermal pools. Look for vital or wellness or thermal in the name, and then check the website under spa to see the extent of their facilities. As a last bonus for your viewing pleasure, we have the Hallstatt Swans, reminding you to delve deeper. Drink in the phenomenal beauty of Celtic places. Breathe the clear, fresh air. Savor the luscious foods and wine. But keep your eyes peeled for design clues. Look at layout and naming. Watch for portrayals of women. If they're elegantly exalted, you're probably seeing a Celtic tribute to women defenders or inventors. In closing, remember the 2 L's that we use for choosing our Celtic travel. Location and language. Prime locations were chosen by ancestors for a reason. Whether in Slovenia, Austria, or anywhere else in Celtic Europe, someone here likely relates all the way back to the town's first settlement. From generation to generation, residents here have worked to keep this place as their ancestors first found it. Raise a glass to the keepers of the flame. May we do as well in protecting our family and land.
Enjoy fine wines and dining, and the wealth of iron and salt. The swans here, too, delve deeply in the mountain's watery vault. Remember, too, the Duchess of Mecklenburg by name. She dug up ancient treasures and broadened Hallstatt's fame. In keeping with tradition, as the Celts have always done, leave it better than you found it. Turn your head up to the sun. Thank you for joining us today. Bye-bye.
Thanks so very much. We'll look forward to the next time. Bye-bye.